Dear friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Nitesh Goyal from DAV College, Chandigarh. I am going to present before you the 8th module titled Research Process under the paper Tourism and Hospitality Research. The module will cover following topics: the introduction, the complete research process, and the summary. Dear friends, after the completion of this module, you will be able to understand and appreciate the steps followed in undertaking the research process. Before beginning, I would like to give you a brief introduction about the topic. Friends, in research, no matter what the objective and thrust behind it, essentially need to follow a sequential and structured path. This unit is focused on understanding this process of research. It may be noted that the process of research is cyclic and interlinked at every stage. After having a brief introduction, let us now take on the process of research. Research process is a series of steps that are taken to carry out research effectively. The chart shown here, as you can see on your screen, it presents an overview of the research process. This chart presents that the research process is formed of a number of steps. These steps are: first, defining the research problem; second, the literature review; third, formulating hypothesis; fourth, preparing the research design; fifth, sampling; sixth, data collection; seventh, analysis of data; eighth, interpretation of results; and ninth and finally the report writing. Let us take all these steps one by one. Under the first step, that is defining the research problem. The research problems are basically of two types. That is, there are two types of research problems, one that defines the nature and the other that defines the relationship between the variables. The researcher must be sure in the beginning only about the problem he wants to study. The best way of understanding the problem is to discuss it with someone who has some expertise in the matter or somebody who has tried his hands on the related matter. To take research further, the researcher must acquaint himself with the selected problem by trying to find all the possible variables involved by examining the existing literature. The literature undertaken by the researcher for review may be categorized under two heads: the conceptual literature, which gives the insights into the concepts and theories, and the empirical literature that consists of studies made earlier which are similar to the one proposed. The basic purpose of this review is to gain knowledge about the data and other material that are available for operational purposes and which will enable the researcher to specify his own research problem in a meaningful context. After this, the researcher rephrases the problem into analytical or operational terms. That is, to put the problem is as specific terms as possible. The problem to be examined must be defined clearly, as it will help in discriminating relevant data from irrelevant ones. The second steps: extensive literature survey. Once the problem is stated, a brief summary of it should be written down. It is necessary for a researcher to write down a synopsis of the subject concerned before taking any further step. At this point in time, the researcher should undertake extensive literature survey related to the problem. For this purpose, the abstracting and indexing journals and published or unpublished bibliographies are the first place to go. The researcher may also refer academic journals, conference proceedings, government reports, books, etc., depending on the nature of the problem. In the process of literature survey, the researcher should keep in mind that one source will lead to another. The earlier studies, if any, which are similar to the present study should be examined more carefully. A good library always proves to be a great help and support to the researcher at this stage. The next step is to formulate the hypothesis. After conducting an extensive literature survey, the researcher should take steps to formulate the working hypothesis. A working hypothesis is an assumption made in order to test its consequences. As the hypotheses are the focal point for research, which makes it very pertinent to understand the manner in which research hypotheses are formulated. In majority of the cases, the formulation of hypotheses play a key role. Hypothesis should always be to the point, crisp, and limited to the research in hand at present. The main aim of the hypothesis is to guide the researcher by delimiting the area of research and keeping the researcher in the right direction. Hypothesis formulation is a result of a thought process undertaken by the researcher with subject experts, which include in-depth study of the subject concerned and the examination of the available literature. Working hypothesis can prove to be more fruitful when stated precisely and clearly. It may be noted here that it is not necessary that hypotheses are to be formulated in case of exploratory research. The fourth step, preparation of research design. After formulating the research problem, the next step is to prepare for a research design. The researcher now needs to state the overall structure of the research within which the research would be conducted. In other words, the researcher will have to build a roadmap on which he has to move. The preparation of such a design will help the researcher to be as efficient as possible, yielding in gathering of optimal information. In other words, the function of research is to provide for the collection of relevant evidence with minimal effort, time and money. The next step is of designing a sample. The first thing here that needs to be understood is the population or universe. It is all the items that are under consideration for an inquiry that formulates the population. It is actually the complete list of all the constituents to be studied. It is presumed that in case of census inquiry, all the items are covered, leading to highest accuracy in the results so obtained. However, it is not feasible in practice. Moreover, it is difficult to identify if there is any element of bias. It is also notable here that census demands a great deal of time, money and energy. Not only this, census inquiry is not possible in practice under many circumstances. For instance, blood testing is done only on sample basis. Hence, quite often we select only a few items from the universe for our study purposes. The items so selected constitute what is technically termed as a sample. The researcher must be sure in his mind about the way he or she is going to select the sample for the study. In other words, the researcher must decide in advance the sample design. It is a predefined course of action for drawing a sample from the target universe, which is done prior to any data collection. Thus, the plan to select 50 students of college in a certain way constitutes a sample design. Samples can be either probability samples or non-probability samples. In case of probability samples, each element has a known probability of being selected to be a part of the sample, but the non-probability samples do not allow the researcher to determine this kind of probability. There can be various types of sampling, as mentioned just now, the probability sampling techniques and the non-probability sampling techniques. The probability sampling techniques may include simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling and area sampling. Whereas the non-probability sampling include judgmental sampling, convenience sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling. There are other types as well like multi-staged sampling and mixed sampling. These two types cannot be categorized under one head, as these are the combination of probability as well as non-probability sampling. The sample design to be used must be decided by the researcher, taking into consideration the nature of the inquiry and other related factors. The sixth step, data collection. In dealing with any real life problem, it is sometimes found that data at hand are insufficient, and thus it becomes important to collect data that are appropriate and adequate. There are several ways of collecting the data in appropriate manner, which differ considerably in context of money, costs, time and other resources that are at the disposal of the researcher. There are two types of data collection techniques, primary and secondary. Primary data collection can be done by any of the following ways. First, observation. Under this method, the investigator himself observes the units in the target sample, but having direct contact with the respondent is avoided. The information thus collected is without involving the respondents, and the respondents generally does not even come to know that they are being observed for some data collection. This method is suitable wherein the sample size to be observed is quite small. It is not feasible to observe a large sample as it will involve a lot of cost and time. Another drawback that this method suffers from is that it provides very limited information and may get affected by the investigator's own personal preferences and biasness. The second method under the primary data collection can be personal interview. Personal interview is a technique of data collection wherein the researcher or the investigator himself asks questions or interviews the respondents and record their responses. This method helps in simultaneous check on the responses received. Here, the researcher can establish an eye contact with the respondent and thus is able to obtain the true responses. However, this method is quite expensive and time consuming. The third method can be telephone interviews. In the telephonic interview technique, the researcher contacts the respondents through telephone and then obtains their responses. In the current scenario, this method of data collection is not widely applied due to its less effectiveness. However, this method helps in saving a lot of funds and time. Another method of primary data collection can be mailing of questionnaires. Under this method, the researcher would send a set of questions to the target respondents and ask them to get it filled by themselves. Thus, the researcher and the respondent does not come into direct contact with each other. It is one of the most widely used methods in survey studies. This kind of method of data collection is very useful in case of a large sample size as it is less expensive. While preparing the questionnaire, utmost care should be given as an ill-stated questionnaire may lead the researcher in wrong direction and resulting in waste of efforts, time and money. Schedules are another method of primary data collection. Schedules are very much similar to the questionnaires. Both have a predefined set of fixed questions that are to be filled with the respondents' information. The major difference between the two is that the responses in the questionnaires are filled by the respondents themselves, and in case of schedules, this job is done by the researcher himself. All the methods mentioned above are good in their own capacity, and no one single method is best out of the lot that can be applied to any research study. Thus, the researcher should choose the method that suits the study most and at the same time adhere to available resources. The next step is the project execution. The project execution is perceived to be a relevant step in the process of conducting the research. If the researcher is able to take the study in the right line, the data thus collected will be more dependable, reliable, and adequate. The researcher must take care that the project is executed in an organized manner and in the stipulated time frame. In case the survey is to be undertaken with the help of a questionnaire, data can be quickly put for further processing. However, the collected data can be put for processing only when proper coding of the response accomplished. If the research study involves data collection through personal interviews, it is important that the interviewers are properly trained and know the basic idea of the research study and its objectives. Also, there should be frequent field checks so as to ensure that the interviewers are performing their assigned duties as desired by the researcher or the funding agency. A careful watch on the possible contingencies or some unforeseen should also be kept. This will help in bringing in more accuracy and reliability. Steps should be taken to ensure that the survey is under full statistical control so that the collected information is in accordance with the predefined standard of accuracy. It is also seen that sometimes the respondents does not cooperate. Thus, to avoid such kind of situation, the researcher shall be well prepared in advance and have a backup plan to deal with such kind of problem. The advised method to tackle the problem of non-response by the respondents is that a complete list of such respondents should be prepared separately and then a small subsample be obtained from it. Then the researcher can make efforts to recollect the data from such respondents. The next step is the data analysis. After the data have been collected, the next task of the researcher is to analyze the collected data. The first step in data analysis is coding. Codification of data refers to assigning the variables certain values or codes so that it can be put to mathematical and statistical analysis. Coding is generally of two types. Firstly, the numeric coding. Under numeric coding, the codes may be numeric or alphabetical. But if the data is to be put on parametric analysis, it has to be numeric. Alphabetical coding. Under this type of coding, only tabulation is done after the frequency count or some graphical presentation of the concerned variables. After the job of coding is accomplished, the data is put for analysis. The analysis may be done by using the statistical techniques. There are a number of statistical techniques to choose from, but all the techniques won't serve the purpose. The researcher has to choose a suitable technique of analysis depending upon the objectives of the study at hand. After the data analysis has been done, the results thus obtained must then be decoded for interpretation. The ninth step, interpretation and generalization. After undertaking the data analysis, next step is to interpret the results thus obtained. The data analysis is not sufficient in itself until unless it is put on for further interpretation. If the hypotheses are tested and upheld a number of times, it may become possible for the researcher to generalize the findings of the study and build a general theory. In the very true sense, the real value of any research lies in its capability in drawing some kind of general theory, which can be used by masses. The whole process of interpretation may sometimes prove to bring forth new queries which in turn may lead to further new researches. The last step in the research process, it is preparation of the report. So finally, after testing the hypothesis and doing the generalization and interpretation, the last step for the researcher is to write the report of what has been done. A research report has always been considered as one of the main components of any study. A research might have been conducted in a great manner, with good hypothesis, scientifically designed, and with fruitful results, which can be widely generalized, can actually prove to be little value till they are not communicated to those for whom it was meant and in a proper and appropriate manner. The results of the study must reach the masses, that is, the businesses, citizens, government, or whosoever is the stakeholder in that research. Keeping into view this high significance, report writing is kept as an integral part of the research process and not as separate. It is actually the last step in the whole process and commands high degree of concentration and precision as compared to other steps. A slight mistake will lead to complete deviation from the actual results reported. Thus, the job of writing a report shall be done meticulously, and the researcher should also not hesitate to take guidance and help of others in accomplishing this task. Report writing must be done with utmost care, keeping in mind the following points. These points are suggestive in nature and are widely used. However, the researcher may opt for putting a variation in the format based on the needs and requirements of the research at hand. The suggested layout of the report should be: firstly, the preliminary pages. The preliminary pages are the initial pages of the report that are presented in the following sequence. The first, the title page. The title page includes the main title of the study along with the name of the researcher and the sponsor of the study, if any. Secondly, the acknowledgements. This page includes acknowledging all those persons who have contributed to the study directly or indirectly. This may include the sponsor, the research guide, support staff, family members, friends, or anybody whose help has been taken by the researcher to accomplish the study at hand. Thirdly, the preface. Preface is a kind of introduction and a brief insight into the whole study. Preface is like a miniature of the whole study that helps the reader to get comfortable with the study before going the actual reading. Fourthly, the table of contents. This page gives a list of all the contents of the study along with the page numbers. Fifth, the list of tables and illustrations. This page is prepared on the similar lines of table of contents. These two pages help the reader to easily locate the desired content of the study. After the preliminary pages, second part is of the main body. The main body of the report provides the complete structure and text of the research report supported with all details. The whole text of the research may be presented in single chapter or multiple chapters, depending upon the size of the report. However, the report should be presented under the following heads or say sections or say chapters. The first, introduction. This section gives the premise of conducting the study. It is like a preamble to the study. Secondly, a review of literature, if any. This section includes the review of some of the research studies that have been conducted previously in the similar area of research. Next is the research methodology. This section holds very important place in the whole study as it presents the methodology and the techniques adopted to undertake the whole study from the very beginning till the end. The fourth, the presentation, analysis and interpretation of data. Under this section or say chapter, the whole research work is presented. This section generally includes the collected information, whether from primary or secondary sources. The collected information is presented in form of tables and graphs. The data analysis and its interpretation are also presented under this section. This section may further be subdivided depending upon the size of the matter. The fifth chapter or the section can be findings, recommendations and conclusions. This section includes the main findings of the study, any recommendations or suggestions that are made along with a brief conclusion of the study. The sixth chapter can be the summary. Many researchers includes this section under the previous section only, but may be presented separately as well. This section will summarize the whole study, that is, from introduction till the recommendations. The third part in the layout is the end matter. This part is the last section of the whole of the report. This section is further divided into following subheads. First, the appendices. It includes all the details of data used in the report like questionnaires, sample information, mathematical derivations, etc. Secondly, the bibliography. Bibliography is the list of sources that have been consulted for the present study. The bibliography should be prepared in a single style that is specified. Third, the index. It is an alphabetical list of names, topics, etc. along with the corresponding page numbers in the report on which these names and topics can be found is given. Report should be written in a concise and objective style in simple language, avoiding vague expressions such as it seems, there may be, and the like. After having understood the complete research process, let us now sum up the whole module. The research process plays a great role in the overall success of any research study. The research process involves a series of steps that are taken one by one. Following a proper and systematic process helps the researcher to stay in the right direction and very much organized. The different steps followed in the process starts with that of defining of research problem and then followed by reviewing of existing literature to preparing a research design along with sampling design, then to collect and analyze the data, and finally interpreting the data and try to generalize the findings and put all these things in a report. Thank you.